We've all looked up at the night sky from a campfire and felt small. But what if that feeling wasn't awe? What if it was a warning, right before the stars decided to fall? You think you know the night sky. You think you know the silence of the woods. You go out there with your buddies, a couple of good rifles, a cooler full of cold beer, and you think you've got the world by the tail. You think the rustle in the leaves is a deer, and the howl in the distance is a coyote. You're wrong. You're so damn wrong it's almost funny. My name is Frank. I used to be a lot of things. A sergeant. A husband. A decent diesel mechanic. Now I'm just a guy who's afraid of the dark. Not the dark in your room, not the dark in a cellar. I'm afraid of the dark. The big one. The one that holds the stars. This was back in, had to be 09, maybe 10. Me, Dave, and Mark. We'd been doing this trip for 15 years straight. Same spot every autumn, deep in the Absorkabertooth wilderness, a place so far off the grid your GPS just gives up and shows you a picture of a pine tree. It was our ritual. Our pressure release valve. Disconnect. Tell the same old stories. Forget the world for a weekend. Dave was the loud one. Always had a joke, always the first to crack a beer. He brought his Mossberg 500, not for any real threat, but because he liked the solid, mechanical thunk of the pump action. Made him feel in charge. Mark was the quiet one. A watcher. An accountant back in the real world, but out here, he was something different. He'd just sit there, nursing a single whiskey, taking it all in. He saw more than any of us. I was somewhere in the middle, the anchor. Kept the fire going, made sure nobody did anything stupid. The trip started normal enough. The usual long, rattling drive in my old Ford F-150, the friendly but slightly too intense wave from the park ranger at the gate, the familiar scent of pine and damp earth. But something was off. As we set up camp, I noticed it first. The silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Pregnant. Like the air was holding its breath. The birds were quiet. Too quiet for dusk. You guys hear that? I asked, looking up from hammering a tent stake. Dave, wrestling with a stubborn cooler lid, grunted. Hear what? The sound of my beer staying stubbornly out of my hand? No, nothing, I said. It's nothing. But Mark was looking at me. He nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the tree-line. He'd felt it too. A pressure. A low-frequency hum that was so deep you felt it in your teeth more than you heard it with your ears. A generator the size of a mountain, running somewhere deep in the earth. Night fell, and we got the fire going. A real nice blaze, popping and spitting sparks up into the inky blackness. The usual routine. We roasted hot dogs, Dave told a terrible story about a run-in with a skunk, and the stars came out. And that's when the world began to gently, quietly, unhinge itself. At first, it was the fireflies. They weren't just blinking. They were moving information. Slow, deliberate figure eights, pulsing in perfect, unnerving unison. It was hypnotic. Whoa, Dave slurred, pointing with a half-eaten marshmallow. You guys seeing this? It's like tiny UFOs. He laughed, but it was a nervous laugh, thin and sharp in the heavy air. Mark didn't say a word. He'd put his whiskey down and was just staring, his face pale and slick in the firelight. Then came the sky. You know how constellations are supposed to be fixed? Just connect the dots, pictures that have been the same for thousands of years? Well, they started to drift. It was slow at first, almost imperceptible. Like your eyes were playing tricks on you after a long day's drive. But then I saw it, clear as day. The Big Dipper's handle began to slowly, impossibly, bend. Cassiopeia's W started to stretch, its points pulling apart like hot taffy. Okay, I said, my voice low and tight. What the hell is going on? My heart was starting to pound a steady, heavy rhythm against my ribs. This wasn't right. Every instinct I had, every bit of training from my time in the service, was screaming wrong. Danger. Unnatural. And then, a comet blazed across the sky. But it wasn't a comet. Comets are silent. This thing let out a shriek. A sound that wasn't sound. It was a psychic nail bomb that went off inside our skulls, a billion years of cold, hateful silence given a voice for a single, soul-shattering second. We all clutched our heads, crying out. Dave fell off his log chair. When that sound passed, we were left gasping, the world spinning. The pressure in the air had intensified tenfold. The low hum was now a grinding vibration that seemed to be coming from the very rock beneath our feet, making the water in our bottles tremble. That's when they began to fall. Not like shooting stars. This was different. The stars, the actual pinpricks of light, began to detach from the black velvet of space and descend. They fell slowly, majestically, like embers from a celestial fire. They weren't burning out. They were getting closer. And we just watched. We couldn't move. Terror has a way of paralyzing you, but this was something else. It was awe. A horrifying, beautiful awe. It was the feeling an ant must get watching a boot descend from the heavens. You know it's the end, but you can't take your eyes off it. Then our bodies betrayed us. My arm twitched. Then my leg. I looked over and saw Dave's body jerking in a spastic rhythm. Mark was on his feet, his limbs moving in a fluid, unnatural dance, his head lolling on his shoulders as if his neck was broken. A force, an unseen puppeteer, had seized us. We were forced to our feet, and we began to dance around the campfire. It wasn't a dance of joy. It was a dance of agony. Every muscle screamed as it was forced into positions it was never meant to hold. I felt my shoulder joint pop, a wet, sickening crunch, but the dance continued, my arm flailing at an impossible angle. We stomped and writhed to a beat that only existed in the vibrating air, a rhythm pounded out by a drummer the size of a galaxy. The falling stars were all around us now, close enough to see what they really were. They weren't balls of fire. They were eyes. Millions of them. Cold, multifaceted, crystalline eyes that watched us with an intelligence so vast and alien it was a physical weight. And the constellations, they weren't just falling. They were taking shape. Ursa Major landed with a ground-shaking thud that wasn't a sound, but a ripple in reality. It was a lumbering horror of black hole fur and claws made of dying light. It let out a roar that tasted like ozone and forgotten time. Scorpio scuttled from the trees, a chittering nightmare of sharp angles and venomous starlight. And Gemini, oh God, Gemini. Two figures, intertwined and screaming, made of pure, blinding light and absolute shadow, their voices a melody that unwrote the laws of physics. They joined our dance. These beasts more ancient than life itself. The world began to shatter. I saw the trees twist into impossible geometric shapes. The ground cracked open, not revealing dirt and rock, but a swirling, star-filled abyss. It was a beautiful, terrible hell, and we were the court jesters for the apocalypse, dancing and screaming as reality was torn apart. This is the part one have trouble with. The memory is fractured. I remember laughing. A wild, broken, insane laugh as I danced with a creature made of starlight. I remember looking at Dave, and for a second, his face wasn't his face. It was something else. Something ancient and reptilian, with eyes that had seen the birth of suns. The puppet master wasn't just making us dance. It was filling us. Using us as vessels. And here's the twist. The real horror. As I was being puppet, a new feeling rose up in me, something that wasn't mine. It was a feeling of boredom. The entity controlling me, it was just stretching. This whole apocalyptic display, this reality-breaking dance, to it, it was nothing more than a man cracking his knuckles after a long sleep. We weren't even an audience. We were dust motes caught in the draft of its sigh. The sheer, crushing scale of our own insignificance was 1,000 times more terrifying than the monsters. That realization is what saved me, I think. That little spark of human defiance. As the bored god in my skull forced my legs to stomp, I focused on one thing, the pain in my shoulder. I grounded myself in it. I held onto it like a life raft. My body just gave out. The pain, the sheer physical impossibility of it all, it was too much. I collapsed. My last sight was of the sky, now a blank, featureless white void, and the Gemini twins leaning over me, their beautiful, terrible song washing over me as my energy faded and the world went black. I woke up to silence. The true silence this time. The fire was dead ash. The sun was rising, but the light was wrong. It was thin, watery, sickly. Dave was gone. Not a trace. Not his chair, not his cooler, not his damn Mossberg. It was like he'd been expertly edited out of the photo. Erased from the timeline. Mark was there. He was sitting on the same log as before, staring into the dead fire. I crawled over to him, my body a symphony of pain. Mark? Mark, are you okay? He turned his head to look at me, and I swear to God I almost died of fright right there. His eyes, they were gone. In their place were two perfect, swirling miniature galaxies. He didn't blink. He just stared through me. He opened his mouth to speak, but what came out wasn't a voice. It was that hum. The low, grinding vibration of the universe. He smiled, a slow, wide smile that didn't reach his star-filled eyes. And he whispered one word. A word that wasn't English or any human language, but I understood it perfectly in the core of my soul. The word was, again. I left him there. I ran. I didn't pack the tent, I didn't grab my gear. I got in my truck and I drove. I didn't stop until I ran out of gas 300 miles later on the side of a highway, babbling like a madman. They found Mark a week later, wandering naked on a logging road, humming his terrible tune. He's in a state facility now. The best one money can buy. He doesn't speak anymore, not in words. He just spends all day drawing. He draws the stars. But they're not our stars. He draws them with angles that hurt your eyes to look at, complex geometric patterns that seem to shift and writhe when you're not looking directly at them. The orderlies call him the stargazer. They say at night, sometimes, the lights in his room flicker in time with his humming. As for me, I'm here. I can't work anymore. My hands shake too much. I live in a basement apartment with the windows blacked out. Because sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still feel it. The pull. The rhythm. The urge to dance. And the sky. I can't look at the night sky anymore. Because it all healed, just like the story says. The earth healed, the sky is back. But it's a lie. A cover-up. A fresh coat of paint over a cosmic horror. The constellations are back where they should be, but I know. I know what they are. They aren't balls of gas millions of light years away. They're sleeping. They're waiting. And they remember their dance partners. Mark is waiting for them. He's inviting them. And whatever happened to Dave, maybe he was the lucky one. Maybe he just got erased. Or maybe he's the one who's truly awake now, out there, somewhere in the cold dark between the stars. So next time you're out under a clear, beautiful night sky, and you feel that little shiver run down your spine, don't dismiss it as the cold. It's them. They're stirring in their sleep. They're waiting for a new flame to glow. They're waiting for the music to start again. And you do not want to be the one they choose to dance with next.